In fact, I'm going to switch to student mode. Okay. I still do not want to enable dictation. Okay, so announcement category here. And we do have the start here option. There's not a huge amount of information that we're going to need to go over on this. Just a couple notes, and you'll want to go through this yourself here. Just talking about some just basics about using Blackboard and such. Now there is, and this is, yes. Hello, how are you? Yay. Robert?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Robert, welcome. Robert, this is everybody else.
Glad to meet everybody else.
Are you familiar with Blackboard, Robert?
Yes.
Yay. What about the health screening? Has anyone done this yet in the last year? Okay. So you'll probably want to access this information here. So again, this is the start here section of Blackboard. So when you click on this, this is the school's requirements for health screening. Every time before you come to campus, you'll have to download the Healthfully app. That's health. For health fully, as in they're fully vaccinated. Healthfully. So you'll have to sign up and sign in with that, and they have a questionnaire that you'll have to fill out every time before you come to campus. So I had to do this as well, by the way. So every once in a while I forget until I'm in the parking lot and then just fill it out in the parking lot. But please make sure you're doing this, that we're adhering to all the school's policies on this. Yes. Well, and I don't expect that you all have done this today. So I'm not asking for us to stop what we're doing and necessarily do that. But basically, the rule of thumb is if you're not feeling well, please do not come to class. If you've been around someone that has COVID, all the same stuff we've been through. I am trying to make as much of this viable online as possible. Again, that's why I'm trying to record some of these. But I don't want you to feel like you have to come to class if you're not feeling well. So I suggest that you let me know ahead of time, a quick email. You'll be surprised how much keeping in contact and communication with your teacher goes a long way, especially before class starts or before something is due. And then the last item here is just a little online etiquette thing. Some things to kind of consider here about being courteous to each other and me to you and you to me. So some things I'd ask that you just kind of go through. So this is going to be, as you know, a pretty short class. So we have 8 weeks to get a massive amount of work completed. So, so things are going to go pretty quick. And I would suggest that you get started on all this stuff kind of immediately, because we're going to jump in right away and get started with some assignments this week. And if you kind of procrastinate and hold back on that, it's going to be really tough to get you caught up. So, just something to consider. Next section is, I do not want to enable dictation. Next section is syllabus, due dates, and lab hours. So this is what David was referring to with lab hours, that they are posted on the wall, but they're also on your syllabus. So the last item in this, you'll see we do have lab hours scheduled from Mondays 2 to 10 p.m., Tuesdays 3 to 7. Now Wednesdays it's 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, David will be the lab monitor here. But Wednesdays are kind of a special day because David has a class that he's gonna be participating online. So as such, at 3 o'clock, he's not gonna be available to answer questions. However, my lab hours, my office hours rather, are from 4 to 5 on Wednesdays. So I will be here from 4 to 5. So you can kind of expect to have that extra assistance if you need that. Not a bad idea to call the lab ahead of time, just to make sure nothing's happened. I mean, we've had water leaks last semester where we had to shut things down, parts of it. And then we're possibly looking at June 28th. We may or may not be open. So it kind of depends on how much people are using the lab. So anyway, it's just something to consider. Okay, so also note, and we'll revisit this here in a bit, there is a due date section here. So I will do my best to always have updated due dates for your current and previous assignments. If it's not up to date, you can always email me. Maybe I just, after all these years, I still sometimes make a small little mistake in re-uploading the new current file there. So, it's not gonna be a pain if you reach out to me. But the big thing, of course, we want to talk about today will be our syllabus. Any questions, by the way? Again, so far you're doing pretty well jumping in with questions as you have them. Feel free to keep doing that. Yes, the COVID thing is still going on. So again, you'll need to fill out that questionnaire, and hopefully, if you're ever gonna clean your station, by the way, and I'll try to have some cleaning cloths if you want to make sure to clean your station beforehand. If you're ever clean your station, maybe you bring a spray, like this stuff is real liquidy. You don't want to use a spray on your keyboards or the screen. So just something to consider. Not everyone thinks about that, but those sprays will degrade the quality of these screens. And of course, liquids in the keyboard hopefully would be an obvious issue. I do recommend that you bring an extra mask to class. Simply because I'm not going to be having extras for other people to wear. So, we do still have to adhere to that, unfortunately. Okay, so this is digital photography. The general meeting times are from 5 to 9:50. It's a long class. Have you ever been in a class this long? Yeah. Couple, maybe one of you. One school I went to, all their classes were like a regular semester, they were just 5 hours. We just met once a week. So that was the upside to it. Some classes we will be utilizing that entire time. So be prepared for that. Today, I don't imagine we'll be going for that full duration. Because we have a relatively limited amount that we necessarily need to get started on. The other thing is, when you signed up for this class, you saw probably that this was in person, hybrid, online, like the full gamut. So what David was alluding to earlier, for those of you that were here for that, because it sounded strange about how this setup is going to be, is my plan is after today, we're only going to be on campus on Wednesdays. And then the other half of the class will be remote learning. So that's going to be where lectures and such, the majority of the lectures will be posted online. So we'll be responsible for that material. If we find out in a couple few weeks, at any point, that's not working for you for whatever reason, If that starts to become an issue for multiple of you, certainly let me know, and I'd be happy to reevaluate the structure, talk to the boss about that. So, again, if you notice, lab hours were Mondays. They go through our class time. That's part of the reason why those lab hours are on Mondays, is because that's gonna be a remote part of our class. But it's a good slot to have lab hours, since ostensibly you should already have this time slot reserved in your schedule in case you need to use the lab. Would you expect to use a lab? You got one, couple? I'm not sure. I'm curious, you know, maybe you don't have your own computer at home that you'll, that's usually the biggest reason people don't have their own computer. Or one that will be viable to do this kind of coursework. I'm sorry? I was too. Mine's like 10 or 11 years old. It's killing me. You know, like, I just don't want to spend another $3,000, but I'm getting close to it. Maybe. I keep getting kernel panics, which means it's on its way out. Okay, so you'll notice in the syllabus, you know, locations being, this is F411. F412 is this mini little room on the side here that David went back into. And then it says possibly G411 or G412. When I say possibly, it's just trying to see how the social distancing, the class size, everything works here. And so if it's not working, we can spread out a little more easily. It's still not ideal down the hall. So I would certainly let you know if we're going to do that. But right now, I feel confident that we can still use this space. So would actually prefer this space. I like these crappy wood tables. They feel like more foamy. Not that I have crappy wood tables at home, but they just. And the other room just feels so sterile and computer roomish. You know, this just feels more inviting, I guess is what I would say. So office hours. I do technically have an office in G417, which you'll never find me in there. You know, most students don't use office hours. You know, it seems kind of weird to sit in this community office space, just kind of waiting for someone to come in. So I'll always be in here unless we switch rooms. If you need to make an appointment during my office hours, I do ask that you make, or if you want to meet with me specifically for office hours, I do ask that you make an appointment beforehand. So again, it's because most people don't use office hours. And so often I will use that time to get some final preparations done for class. And so that helps me kind of prepare and deal with my time as well. Okay. I don't know. I don't think I've ever taken longer than a day to get back to somebody on an email. So, you know, there's just things that you should kind of have expectations from me on. If you haven't heard back from me within a day, yeah, certainly reach out again. You know, it's always possible something went to the wrong folder. It's possible something actually got deleted. There's some issue there. So, you know, especially our time is limited. You know, this, you know, when it comes to like getting an email response, you know, in a way, this isn't a time to really be polite and like, oh, I don't want to bug him, and like, oh, I didn't need to, you know, just to make sure things went through. So, I'd like us to stick with our STLCC emails for this class, just to keep everything synchronistic. But here I'm posting my personal Gmail account, just in case there is some issue getting through with my school account. That is an alternative thing if it's going to be a little bit more urgent. Okay, so basic course description, digital photography, introduction, basically how the camera works, how to make image adjustment through software. What software are we going to be using? I know somebody has an idea.
I use Lightroom.
You use Lightroom? Which one?
No, I was CC, the classic.
Uh-huh. Well, CC or the classic?
The CC.
Yeah, okay.
And I've used Luminaria also.
Luminaire,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. Can we use Photoshop? How many people have had experience with Photoshop? Ah, nobody likes using Photoshop. Yay. Have you ever taken a class in it? Yeah. That helps sometimes. Usually does.
It's just it's always been a complex program.
It is. It is. Don't worry, we won't be using Photoshop this semester. We'll be primarily, we'll be using Lightroom CC and Lightroom Classic for this. Okay, and here it talks about producing a portfolio of prints. You know, we haven't been doing much printing this last year with the pandemic. So we're kind of easing our way back into this. And I do think that we all need to have experience at least some fashion with printing. So I expect that we'll each do one singular print to get that experience in. The good news for that, though, is with so few prints being made, you won't need to go out and buy a print card for this. So it's something we can supply the ink for the frequency. So, that way you can still get the experience in. So that takes off a little bit of the fees for the class. Okay, so basic learning outcomes. I'm not going to go through all these. I would encourage you to go through the syllabus with a fine-tuned tooth comb, just to make sure that you're abreast of everything going on. And it is an introduction class, so no experience at all. You're in the right place. And if you have lots of experience, keep in mind that it might just need to be a little patient if we go through some things that you're already familiar and comfortable with. Hopefully, and perhaps along the way, you'll also find some little new gems of things that you didn't quite know beforehand. Okay, so one big thing here is attendance and participation is mandatory. By the way, when I say participation, that doesn't mean that you have to be the most vocal person in the class. If you're a shy introvert, I'm one of those introverts, by the way. I understand that there is that type of learning that's very active, but is rather silent. So participating doesn't mean that you're necessarily always being overly vocal. I would like us to share our opinions. It goes a long way, and a lot of things come up as we start to do that. But I don't want you to feel like you have to change your personality just for this class. The big thing is critiques. You'll need to make sure you're here for. And as I said, if you're not feeling well, then please don't come to class. We have the option always to join in through Zoom. So if you have to and you need to, we can have you participate that way if you're not feeling well. Who's been in art critiques before? Couple and a half? Okay. How were they? Yeah. Are they scary? It's what? Yeah. Yeah, when I was an undergraduate, we had a painting teacher. I never took him, thankfully, but I heard the horror stories. Like he would have that the class as a whole had to hang the latest paintings from the class from left to right, from best to worst. And they all had to somewhat agree on this. As I understand, like everybody was like, and not everybody, but every class, there was always somebody running out of class crying. He was an amazing artist. But anyways, I kind of like that term critique less and less. I don't know, it feels negative sometimes. I don't mind negative things, like being discussed when it's a time, but I think that certain students in particular just have this like, oh, God, it's critical of me, and that is what it's going to be, but we'll might refer to them a little more as discussions, because that's really the whole intent of it, just to kind of discuss the work and let ideas kind of emerge that we wouldn't necessarily have preconceived beforehand. So please don't be overly concerned about that word and that notion of dealing with critiques. Okay, course materials. I think the planner is an excellent idea. Just to make sure that you know when those deadlines are, when those due dates are. Again, you should always have that updated PDF under the section that we're in now for syllabus, due dates, and lab hours. Should always have that PDF updated for all the upcoming due dates. But again, this might be something to help you manage this. Okay, this is wrong. I put this is only a 12-week class. This is 8 weeks. So I need to fix that one. Okay, so there are two options for a camera. How many of you have your own camera to use for this class? DSLR, a digital single lens reflex, a mirrorless camera, something that has manual controls, and shoot and roll. I'm sorry, once again, how many? Okay, so almost everybody. So what I want to do Wednesday is I want to make sure that I want to have everyone bring in their cameras. I just want to have a quick little rundown on their cameras. If you don't have a camera to use for this class, we have cameras for you to check out. And I also want to get that done Wednesday. So there'll be other things that we'll be covering on Wednesday outside of that. But that's going to be probably the most important thing, in my opinion, for us to get done, is so that you can get out and start shooting in the next week. Any questions? Concerns?
How does checking out a camera work?
Basically, you need to give me every piece of personal information about yourself. Like you'll need, I'm kidding in some ways, but in other ways not. So I would need a photo ID, like a driver's license, a student ID, your current address, every conceivable email and phone number. And so I will be photocopying that information and we'll have it on hand. Because if you check things out, you are responsible for that equipment and turning it back in the same condition in which it was sent out to you. And there are replacement costs if things are lost, stolen, or damaged. So, and later in the syllabus, we'll talk about the list of those replacement costs if that does come up. So, but it's a nice opportunity. It's nice that we have those cameras to allow students. In undergraduate, I went through my entire undergraduate without my own camera. I was lucky enough I could check out all the cameras from the schools. They had everything up to large format cameras to use. Anyone know what large format camera is? Back in film, you remember those 35 millimeter negative strips? If you don't, then say, wow, we're getting really far from that. Tiny little negatives that you enlarge. Well, those negatives can get larger and larger, the actual physical negatives. So I tend to lean towards those 4x5 cameras that give you a 4x5 inch negative. Really big negative, you get much better quality image. So yeah, my school's always allowed us to check that out for the semester. So again, it's nice that we do have that here. If you're checking out a camera here, one thing that you won't have is a memory card. That is something you have to buy for yourself. And you should have these in the bookstore in case you're dealing with financial aid, so that you can utilize that before, while you're waiting on your financial aid to go through. So the ones we have in the bookstores should be 32 gigabytes, which should be more than ample enough space for what we're going to be doing this semester. The other thing you'll need is access to Adobe and their software. As I said, we'll be using Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. Has anyone taken any kind of studio art class here in the last, I don't know, year or so? Like a design class? I guess you probably haven't taken a photography class. This is little one. What's nice is the school is now covering your subscription for Adobe. So we're going to get you logged in to Adobe software. And I'd like to hopefully get us all logged in before we leave today to make sure that we can all access that. Again, I'm not sure how that'll work if you don't have access to your email.
I may be able to find whatever password is saved somewhere on this computer.
Did you get into Blackboard?
It automatically logged me in,
That's weird.
so I guess the it's saved on here, but it's not saved on my phone. I'm not sure. It just,
Well, you can
I can go find the password
in Chrome.
in Chrome and go from there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I could do the same password. Okay. I'm a little more optimistic now. Hey.
I was a little worried about having to go reset that.
Yeah, it's never fun.
I was like, I don't know.
So, oh, yes. 8 weeks, that was my flub. Okay, so if you have a computer at home, you should be able to download Lightroom using the account information that hopefully we all get set up today. Yes.
What if we already have a subscription? So I need a separate.
No. No, you're welcome to use that subscription. It's completely just fine.
What's considered a high quality?
Well, my biggest stipulation is that you would have manual controls and you can shoot in RAW. Does anyone know what RAW is, by the way? We got one? Somewhat? What's that? Yeah, I mean, just a quick little, you know what JPEG is? Almost all cameras shoot in JPEG, usually. The better, higher end quality cameras often and usually have the option to shoot in RAW. What's wrong with JPEG, by the way? Yeah, now? No, you can turn it off. Thank you so much. Good to see you, David. Thank you. What's wrong with the JPEG file?
Processes the color before you does the lighting and the colors.
It does do that in the camera, but what's wrong with the JPEG file in and of itself?
Doesn't save all the data that's available.
It doesn't save all the data that's available. It compresses it. It throws information out of your file Why in the world would they do that?
That's it, guys.
Yeah. What's the benefit of throwing away all this precious information?
Transfer more.
Transfer more easily? Storage? Probably most importantly is for web pages. I mean, what do you do whenever a web page takes more than 2 seconds to load? Click away. You know, so yeah, you want things to load faster, and then so JPEGs do a great job of, of what they're trying to do. But if you're wanting to really preserve all the information, you have the option of shooting them raw, where it's the complete unadulterated file. All the information is intact. There's no compression. And we'll talk more about that, of course, as things go on. Okay, so if you don't have a computer to use, we have lab hours that you can utilize the computers here. But there's also an option of checking out a computer for the school. So I have had students in the last year that's been checking out computers from the school. I don't know much about these, and unfortunately, they're PCs, which kind of, I don't know what to do on a PC. I just never really learned on one. So if you're getting a laptop from the school, and if you need to get a laptop, you'll want to do that. Like if we take a break, you'll want to do it like then. Like you want to do it right now to get that process going. And you may need to contact the IT desk, the help desk. If you need help getting software, I don't know if they have permissions and authorizations that you have to have them help you with to get like Lightroom and such on there. But it is a viable option. The one thing that doesn't tend to work in my experience is utilizing a Chromebook. I have tried to work with students on this, and there's just so many problems that arise. There's very little space in which you can save files on a Chromebook. And if you're familiar with the Chromebook, of course, you can't really run your programs through the Chromebook itself. We have Splashtop at the school that gives you remote access to our computers here, but it's pretty clunky. And again, I don't really have a lot of success from that. So if you have a Chromebook and you're planning on using that for this class, I might direct you more towards seeing if you can get a laptop from the school, or again, we will have some lab hours available. I do highly recommend a thumb drive. Ideally, I think it's nice to have that backup on a thumb drive you can bring from your computer and transfer over here to our computer here. However, I really don't know that this is going to be mandatory because we're going to use Lightroom CC. What does CC mean? Does anybody know? I'll ask a lot of questions that you presumably.
Email CC is a different CC.
It's a different CC. It's a Lightroom CC. It's a Creative Cloud. What's so special about the cloud?
Storage.
Yeah, so you have storage on there. So we can upload our images to Lightroom CC, and then wherever you sign in to Lightroom, wherever computer you're on, all that should be available to work on and work with. So I'm thinking we can probably even get away with without a thumb drive this semester. So again, it's nice to have as a backup, but I think you should be okay. Okay, and here's the help desk number. Always fun to deal with them. Optional materials for class. Tripod. Why do you need a tripod? Who needs their image stabilized? What's that?
Dark, like night photos, dark skies,
Yeah.
long exposures.
How long of an exposure?
Yeah.
1 second.
That's for doing Milky Way, probably 20 seconds. 30.
What about 1 second?
That's it.
It's gonna be pretty shaky. And we'll talk more about this. I'm not requiring a tripod by any means. I mean, a lot of things you'll be kind of, sorry if I burst your bubble, you'll be kind of required to do things during daylight hours outside, because it eliminates a lot of factors that could just add more and more issues. And as a beginning class, kind of want to streamline some of those things. But just as a side note, and I start to talk about this more in length with advanced classes, is outside of your camera and your computer to process your images and all that, that tripod's really important. And what students, not students, but what a lot of people don't realize is tripods are used during the day a significant amount of time as well. And if you don't know what we're talking about with exposure and all that, don't worry. I don't want you to feel like, wait a minute, what did I miss? We'll talk about that. But a significant amount of time, people will start to use tripod during the day because they still can't get short enough exposure to hand hold it. Tripods are important, but again, don't feel like you're at a loss. It's not going to be mandatory for this class. I just like to emphasize the importance of a tripod is all. Okay, so we have Campus Bookstore. Schiller's is the main kind of camera and video place around town. If you ever need to go there for equipment and such, you have your ID, your STLCC ID, they'll give you a discount on many things. Online places you can kind of look through and visit. Okay, any questions at all? At any point in time, you just feel like you need a break. We're only half an hour in, so but if you feel like you need a break, and I can keep talking for quite a while, so sometimes I can forget that we need a break. So if someone needs a break, just say, hey, can we have a break? And we'll take one. Okay, again, here's more information on the help desk. We kind of covered this already about the hybrid option, where on-campus time is exchanged for online activities and lectures and such. How many people have done well, I guess, especially in the last year, you're getting more acquainted with the online stuff. And who was taking classes last spring when all this happened? How was that experience when everything shut down and went online? What's that? Yeah, it was definitely odd. Not good. What class was it?
I was an EMT trained. I was in the EMT program.
Okay,
So
yeah.
all our practicals got shut down.
Yeah.
The city closed everything to students.
I felt bad for the ceramic teachers, painting teachers. I thought, oh, I just couldn't imagine what they went through.
I was in a ceramics class.
Were you?
Yeah. We basically just made a couple things in raw clay and just showed it in that form.
I mean, what can you do?
I mean, that was like halfway through the process, but that's what we had to do. Because we didn't have access to our accounts.
Yeah. I'm sure you don't want to have people do a raccoon fire in their backyards. Like that just feels like a liability waiting to happen. Okay.
Well, again, if this turns out it's not working, then we'll change this around. What I like a lot about, I mean, I've been doing a hybrid class for, I teach a Photoshop class. I've been teaching that for what, 10 years now? I don't know, 7, 8 of those years it's been hybrid, and I actually prefer to lecture in class. But it just made more sense in a way for me to record my lectures and let students go through them at their own pace, rather than trying to remember every detail in the 3.5 hours you're in class. There's a certain point where your brain cuts off. So it's nice because you can go back and you can rewind, you can pause. And so I kind of like that format. So hopefully this still works. But again, if we're just finding significant issues where like this isn't working for us, we can have that conversation if that comes up. So certainly let me know.
What kind of things will you be going over on Mondays?
Well, it's not specifically Mondays that it'll be released, like you just that you have to do it on Monday. For instance, and we'll talk about this after we get through the syllabus, you have a myriad of videos that you need to watch and information to go through, because we have an assignment that's due. Well, we have a couple assignments that are due, but we have a photo assignment that is due a week from Wednesday. And so, so like, for instance, this week we'll talk about importing images into Lightroom, exporting them and certain features, how I want you to upload them to present for the class, things of that nature, some basic ideas and terms about photography. So all that will be in the online part of it, and then next Wednesday, I want to spend a big bulk of the class. There should be time to answer questions and such, but a big bulk of the class to talk about the images that we made, kind of have our first discussion, critique, if you will. So does that make sense? So speaking of assignments, we have, we have one assignment that's going to be due this Wednesday. So in just a couple days, again, this class does move quickly. And so we'll need to kind of jump on this. This was a pretty easy assignment. So I want to make sure that you're set up with your STLCC email account. That means you should be able to get a Blackboard, all of this. And I want you to, and I'll explain the whole assignment here in just a little bit. But some basic information that I'm getting from you kind of helps us touch base and set a foundation for this. And again, we'll look through due dates and we'll go over that whole assignment and where it's at in Blackboard in detail. Okay, all work needs to be newly created images. In other words, I did this 3 years ago from my high school class. I wanted to bring this in. It's like this, everything needs to be new for this semester. So, and then you have to be each assignment. We're not recycling images between assignments. So each assignment you'll need to be shooting new images for. Some of these things just seem kind of like obvious and intuitive, but over time you realize like, oh, I need to specify this. So that's why we're just kind of covering this a little bit. So here's just a basic standard of different levels of grading. Again, you might want to go through some of this. June 28th. It's the last day to turn in all assignments. That should be a Wednesday. That's our last class. And we're done. It's so close already. So I need everything by the end of the class period that day so that I have time to submit your grades in a timely fashion. So, yes.
This is an 8-week class. Yeah.
Did it-
4 weeks away.
What's that?
You mean July 28th?
July 28th. Yeah.
Okay.
Man, I did it again.
I was looking at my calendar, I was like, that's not 8 weeks.
Man, that would be really scary. Wow. July 28th. I'm writing notes I'll fix the syllabus tonight. Yay. Thanks for catching that. How many other people were scared? You know, you need other people to proofread your stuff because it's really hard to proofread your own stuff because your mind just puts in what's supposed to be there. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so notice there's going to be basic categories in which your grade is calculated. So for instance, critique participation, that's 20% of your grade. Just for being here, submitting work, and chatting with all of us about your thoughts. So, I've had students in the past say like, I didn't do this one assignment because it was only worth like 10 points. And I was like, yeah, but what if all the assignments only worth 10 points? Or, in this section, it's, in that class, it was, they had sections that were worth up to 60% of their grade. It's like, point value is less significant as it is, relative to the overall structure. So if it doesn't sound like a lot of points, keep in mind, this is kind of a percentage system. You'll have some basic skills and then some, kind of some basic assignments, all of which will be factored in. But it's good to know that it's not just a straightforward accumulation of all of your points that you've gathered throughout the semester. So attendance and participation in all critiques discussions is mandatory. So, this is a really kind of a special time where we can just start talking about photographs. Things come up that, I never would have thought to have brought up. And it's a good way to really expand our kind of approach to photography. So these are really important. So please make sure that you're not missing out on these. So here's just some, scary stuff about, don't do this in critique. Don't show up late. Don't leave early. Don't do other work in there. It's trying to emphasize the importance of critique. So you might want to go through that more carefully to make sure you're clear on kind of some of the rules with that. Okay, PR. Does anyone know what PR is? Grade of a PR? People don't ask about it that much these days. It's been like 4 years since someone's asked. Pass upon request. It's for a special situation in like the first year of a student starting at Forest Park or the STLC campuses. Anyways, it's only meant for a small select few classes, and this is not one of them. So so this always goes in my syllabus, just to upfront say not to ask for this. You don't get to photograph me for any assignments. Again, this all needs to be your work, so screen captures, video stills. This is all coming from the camera and pictures you are making yourself. Incompletes. This is good to highlight. So I had a student once who turned in an email assignment and then the very first assignment, and never turned in anything else again after that. And that was a 12-week class. In about week 10, they emailed me and said they wanted an incomplete. And I was like, oh, well, that's not a situation which an incomplete is for. It's like if something kind of extreme comes up, like a car wreck or something. It was, anyways, it went on for a couple weeks of them being very angry that they wouldn't get an incomplete And I'm kind of like trying to explain that's not really what an incomplete's meant for. You know, it's meant if you've finished most of the class and something really drastic comes up, you know, we'll consider giving you an incomplete. So here, this kind of alleviates some of those issues up front. You know, 75% of the coursework needs to be finished with a grade of C or better at that point to be considered for an incomplete. So. So here it is again, just reiterating, if you're sick, don't come to class, contact me, we'll see what we can work out. However, and you know, this could be good to note, the college does require us to enter attendance in every week, which I will be doing. So I don't know, it's possible that attendance record could negatively affect your financial aid. I don't know a lot about the financial aid system here. So, but it sounds like it's, I don't know, there's a possibility there. So just something to note. So normally kind of our standard with the photo department is, you know, if you're turning in something late, you know, you can have, you know, 2 weeks is usually the maximum. But we're kind of on steroids here. Luckily, we're not on steroids up to the June 28th deadline. That's the July 28th deadline. But we're still in double time, you know, so if you are turning in something late, there is a 20% penalty for that. And after a week, there's no longer an option to turn in something late. So we start getting past that point, it starts to become really difficult to catch up and keep on pace. So if something comes up, I would suggest that you contact me. Which I said here again. Okay, so no plagiarism. By the way, I had one, it's happened to me only once. One class I taught, this girl, she ended up going to New York. And she saw this photo she really liked. And she took a photo of the photo. And a whole bunch of things just like that. And turned that in as her final body of work. And she never understood that was plagiarism. And instead, she just had a lot of like swear words for me. And I was like, oh, wow, this is such an adult way to talk about this. It was an online class, so you know, people could be more turds since they were online. They don't see you in person. But even as much as I explained, it was like she never understood that. It's you know, we want to stay away from plagiarism. Is there, and just in case that scares somebody now, so let's say like this is a famous piece of art, for instance, you know, a famous photograph. And if I come in real close and take a photograph of that and then enlarge as my own, that's plagiarism. But if I pull back a little bit and I get this in there, I get a little bit of the edge here, maybe it's in a frame, I get some of the frame in there, it's no longer plagiarism. Why is that?
We're creating a composition.
Yeah, you're creating your original. And that little bit of context is that you're not representing that whole piece of art as your own. You're now changing the context in a sense of where that work resides in. And that's kind of one way around it. So in other words, I don't want you now, in case you know, you misunderstood what I was saying there, by thinking like, oh, I don't want to have any art in my photographs or any photographs in my photographs because then I'll be plagiarism. It's not that easy, if you will, to plagiarize that. You have to really purposefully try to just catch the art itself. So, you know, but that also goes for grabbing images off the internet. You know, just keep in mind all these need to come from your own work. Basic cell phone stuff. It's, if you need to record something, just let me know ahead of time. Again, I've let you know that pretty much I'm recording these anyways, or trying to. Hopefully there'll be no issues there. Headphones, this is kind of a good thing to address. And that is especially if you're going to be utilizing lab time. If you're going to be utilizing lab time, you may want to be listening to some of the videos for that week's lecture. And if you're going to need to listen to videos, I do ask that you bring headphones, hopefully for obvious reasons, so you're not disturbing other people in the lab. And if there aren't other students in the lab, I'm sure David would be driven nuts by hearing all these videos going. So something to consider. Okay, so this last minute clause just mentioning about how you should be working things on a timely fashion. All I'm saying is people will sometimes try to, 20 minutes before the assignment is due, is frantically need my help to get something fixed, and then their stress becomes my stress, and it's not really fair. So keep in mind that last minute, you may not be able to get the help that you're looking for. And the subject, the syllabus is subject to change at any time. I would let you know. Okay, so I think that date's wrong too. Okay, so if you're checking out equipment, you really want to make sure to, one second, I'm writing something down. You want to make sure to keep in mind the deduction of grades, if things are past due. And then more importantly, the replacement costs. Keep in mind the cameras themselves are going to be a little pricey. So, this doesn't happen often, but you should be aware of that up front. If you need to withdraw, I don't do that. That's something you'll need to do with admissions. And July 16th is the deadline. It's Friday by 5 p.m. And then we have our basic non-discrimination statements. These things should be on all of your syllabi. And if you need to get student support, and my favorite, wear a mask. Yay. Okay, any questions on the syllabus? Sometimes it gets so tiring to go through all that, I know, but it's good to know some of these things up front. Okay, so the other thing in this section is due dates. And if I click on this, you will see we have 3 due dates already. This is all in week 1. You have the email assignment that is due this Wednesday. It's not a hard assignment. You just need to email me. I'll show you where the assignment directions are. But you just need to email me by 5 p.m. on Wednesday before class starts. And then we have the first 20 assignments. And that is going to be due week following from this Wednesday on June 15th. No, that'll be due a week from tomorrow. Sorry, June 15th. And then we'll just have our first little discussion, aka critique, about this on that following class. So just so you kind of are aware those things are upcoming. The majority of what we're looking for on Blackboard is going to be under course content. So if I click on that, notice right now we just have, no, I don't want The first item is going to be a link to the Zoom session. Password is photo. So in case you ever need to join in remotely. And then we just have one folder right now, and that is week 1, which starts today. So first thing on the list is the email assignments. So notice, by the way, that I'm trying to put in blue where you have kind of assignments or critiques and things of that nature. So email assignment, here's all the directions, questions you're supposed to answer, things of that nature. So make sure that you're answering each one of these little bullet points in that email for me. There I made one more mistake. Yay. Okay, sorry. Everywhere else it says 5 p.m., even in your syllabus. This one says 4 p.m. It'll be 5 p.m. I'll change that again tonight. Sorry about that. And you need to send this from your STLCC email account. So this is worth 20 points, goes to that basic skills semester grade component. And then you have a shooting assignment, and I'm sure you're all kind of curious as to what that is. And all I'm asking for is 20 photos. You don't need to know all the ins and outs of using your camera. Or you can shoot in complete auto mode. We just want to get out photographing. I don't want to really give you much direction. Just kind of see how you respond to things. You will want to photograph outside in daylight. Keep in mind that daylight does not mean necessarily straight sunlight. Daylight can mean it's overcast.
Sorry, you said you want all 20 of them to be
Not outside.
outside.
Shot outside, not at dusk or evening or night. Shot outside. Bright and sunny, overcast, those are fine. They just eliminate so many issues that could arise. So you don't have to process these. Basically, what we want to do this week is we want to get some images on our SD card. We want to get them from our SD card into Lightroom, utilizing the Creative Cloud. And then we want to export them into a folder. And we're basically going to upload that folder on the internet so we can all view these through Blackboard next week. That's the main agenda. So, so you can photograph it live for this. So it's not like a real heavy assignment, and it's only 20 images. Yeah, I would encourage you to be thoughtful about what you're doing. You're not going to get penalized if you're more thoughtful than your neighbor or less thoughtful. You know, but just something to consider. I think next class period, I just want to talk a little bit about some photographs. So, you know, we're going to spend some time just looking at some photographs, you know, because we're all experts in some fashion, if you will, on photography. In that we see it all the time, every day, everywhere you go, you see photographs. So I want to take a little time and look at some photographs that won't necessarily be in your normal eyesight, things that you may not be as accustomed to. Maybe you are, I don't know. But you know, I just kind of expand this discussion about how we approach photography. Because it's a good question too. What do you photograph?
What do you photograph? I know, that was always hard for me to figure out, like an undergraduate especially. I was like, what do I photograph? You know, I just want to photograph sunsets. Owls. What do you photograph? Sometimes I think people are looking for that thing that no one's ever photographed. Photographs in a way that nobody's ever photographed it. You know, some of the most impactful photographs are just photographs of everyday things. Because that's what our lives are about. Everyday things. And that doesn't mean that they're banal, it doesn't mean that they're boring, you know. Oh, I photograph my kids. You know, that's the everyday thing. I don't mean it like it's not, doesn't have value. Contrary, this is have quite a bit of value. So we'll talk about that next week. Maybe expand our range about how we can approach this. But as far as this assignment goes, I don't want you to feel a big burden. I just want you to get out and photograph. Yeah. If your photographs technically aren't great, that's fine. If they're great, great. Keep in mind, you know, we're just trying to get acquainted with some of the software. We're trying to jump into this. So this isn't meant to be heavy. I'm just saying, you know, you might be thoughtful. Might be a good time to explore some things. But if you're spending 8 hours trying to take 12 or 20 photographs, you might be making this harder on yourself than is intended. There's the spirit of this. You know, and then we're going to look at it next week. So other people are going to look at it. So then there's always that pressure of like, well, you know, mine have got to be better than everybody else's because everyone else is going to be judging you. And, you know, keep in mind, like I remember I went to, I think at Ecuador, kind of like a humanitarian type of trip. In fact, I was still shooting film, and I took like 60 rolls of film out there, and when I brought it back after a week, I got it developed, and I saw the pictures, and I literally cried because my pictures were so bad. I can't believe I did so terrible on this. And then I reminded myself, like, oh, that's right. That's why you take a lot of pictures. Take a lot of pictures. Like, if I want to take a picture of this printer, which I don't, but if I did, you know, maybe I take a more passive image at this angle. And maybe I draw more direct, you know, maybe I try one up here, I try horizontal, try vertical, you know, trying different shots of that, hoping that one of those kind of turns out. You know, this most subtle shift could really change how that photograph is read overall. Point being, those 60 rolls of film, when I narrowed them down to 100 images, I was like, oh, these are not really good, you know. But point being that I'm getting at though is, normally if I'm going to show you those images, you, the Kirby, or you, anybody, they would see maybe the 100 that I liked, and they don't see all the ones that didn't work to get there. Because then they'd be like, oh, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. It's like, yeah, that's part of the process. You know, so again, like if yours aren't perfect, this isn't supposed to be a shameful period. You know, this is, you know, we're all gonna have those imperfect images. You know, you still have all those images from high school you've never shown anybody, private images that you talked about. So, you know, keep in mind that I understand that, and hopefully all of you will understand that when we get to discussing those images. Okay, so there will be videos on how to import your images into Lightroom, how to export them through your STLCC email account. Another reason why it's important that you have access to that, we have access to OneDrive, and that is where you will be submitting your first 20 images.
So keep in mind, some of this, some of the videos and such here. So I'm taking this class over from Jamie, who often teaches this. And she, I'm using some of her videos to talk about these things. Some things where I feel like, oh, I want to clarify this a different way. I'm putting other videos up that I have myself, so, she has hers on Vimeo, I put mine on YouTube. So, just keep in mind in case you're wondering why things go back and forth through different platforms. Often I spend more of my time teaching Photoshop and advanced courses. So, but I think it's good to know that I'm bringing in a little her material along with my own. So, just a little notion up front. Okay. So, just as a starter here, I have a PDF that just has basics and bullet points of just some terms, ideas about photography. A lot of this is going to be terribly obvious. Some things maybe not as much, but just things that get us thinking about photography. It's not, hopefully, as you might know, it's not always as, I want to take a picture of this printer's in front of the camera, I press the button, and I have immense success. There's a multitude of other factors. So this just gives us some terms we might use throughout the semester in our discussions and just things to think about. And so those terms, I have three, basically it's one long, the idea is it's one long video, but it's just broken up into three parts where I take that list and I just start to talk about that. So I am asking that you go through this before our next meeting time. And I would suggest that you go through it before you start photographing, just because it kind of, even if you had experience with photography, it kind of maybe just refreshes your ideas about how you might start to approach it. Again, it's not overly profound. Some things are very obvious, but I think it could be something very good and helpful to do. I'm writing one other thing down. Okay. Okay, and then you have two sets of videos where you're importing your images from your camera into Lightroom CC. Make sure, by the way, you are using Lightroom CC and not Lightroom Classic. Does anyone know why that's important, by the way? No? It doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. And we'll probably bring this up again. But Lightroom Classic, whenever you upload it to the cloud, it uploads previews of your image, but not the full images. So if you go to another computer or you go to Lightroom CC, you don't have access to the full image. It's kind of weird as a cloud service. However, if you go through Lightroom CC and not Lightroom Classic to upload your images, they are available on Lightroom Classic, Lightroom Mobile. So it is important that we're getting used to using just the basic Lightroom for this, and then how to export and to submit them for the assignment. And just so it's clear, I did put a discussion, aka critique here, just talking about, again, when things are due. That's kind of makes it official that these are points that are going to be given to you for this class. Okay, any questions? How do you feel about this? Does it seem pretty straightforward? Hesitation? Is there concern? Well, the energy's gone. It's a max, isn't it? By the way, one more. Well, so you're not- see, took your math the whole semester. Okay, if there's other questions, what I want to do is, and I'll send an announcement out before our class on Wednesday. Reminder, we have, we're gonna bring our cameras in. We're not going to go far in depth. I want to make sure everyone has their camera. I'm gonna make sure it's working, they can get that to work. Talk about some photography, look at some photographers. Well, we'll look at the photographers' work, not so much the photographers themselves, so to speak. And then we'll be off and running into our first assignment. Today, before you leave, I would like us all to try to get onto the Adobe Suite to make sure we have access to the school on that. So what you want to do is you want to hop onto a computer.
I can move if someone needs a computer.
What's that?
I said I can move if someone needs a computer.
Okay. So we have,
Yeah.
we want to try to remain 6 feet apart. So I have computers here that you're open to use as well. Before you go to them, I guess, I've just mentioned I'm in Chrome. I'm just going to go to Adobe. In the search bar, first item is Adobe Creative Cloud. And I'm just going to go to sign in. And that's where we want to start inputting our information. So you'll be using you should be able to use your SPLCC email account information. And this computer is really wonky. So you'll put this information and I'll help you navigate from there. So it may take a minute for it to get you there. You may have gotten an email from the school. Anyone get an email? Anyone get an email from the school
Just fix it so you can see them, so.
about activating your account?
No, but I just did it on my phone,
Yeah.
but that's just signing in and creating an account. That was, but then it doesn't self-navigate in terms of what you.
But you
want
should,
to do.
so whenever you sign in, you want to sign in with the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you signed in through the school,
Yeah.
right? And you got.
And it was just like, right, you have an account, but then it doesn't say anything about going from there.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay. It says
Like Adobe did set me up.
no, it's other school did. They keep changing every semester how people access this. Okay, if you're watching this later, I'm gonna cut it short now.